All right, I think we are live. So welcome to the office hours for OMS-CS 6300. So special day because last week we had a break and so we didn't have office hours. So we figured it was better probably to have them early on in the week so that we can answer your questions about D3. In terms of announcement, D3 is there's a couple of things. So one is that D3 is the last deliverable on the individual project. So after that, you're basically done. So the only thing that you're supposed to do is to discuss the two readings. That's not graded, but I nevertheless hope that you guys will be discussing them. Those are relatively, actually fairly old readings, but they're still very timely, I would say. And so I think they stand the test of time, definitely. And so I'll be really interested in seeing what your opinion is about the reading. So please discuss them, and it's perfectly fine if somebody just starts the discussion on Piazza, or if nobody does it, we can kind of trigger it with the post. And the other thing I want to mention is that the OMS, not the OMS, the CIOS is open. So that's as you know, probably most of you, if not all of you know, is the course instructor opinion survey. So we really ask you to go and complete that and give your feedback about the class, so good or bad. We want to hear your opinion, and especially we're particularly interested in hearing your opinion about things that you think worked out well or did not work well, and what we can improve. So we read those and we do our best to take them into account for the next semester. So of course, it's not going to benefit you directly, but it's going to benefit people taking the class after you. And so if everybody does it, then the classes that you will take will be better for that. So it's sort of across the board, the whole set of classes will improve if everybody. And we welcome your feedback, and we really request your feedback. The other thing I want to mention is that we normally, as I mentioned before, try to have an in-person office hour before the end of the semester. And so it would have happened probably this week normally, but since there's still D3 going, that's not a good week. And next week, I'm going to be on the road, so it will be tough to arrange. So, well, long story short, I'm trying to find the time that might work for this, and I'll keep you posted. I will try to post something on Piazza. Unfortunately, I have 2 trips coming up that makes it a little hard to do it this week or the next. I'm also fine doing it after the semester is over. My only concern is that nobody will show up because the semester is over, and people are, rightly so, probably taking a break. Make it any of the 2 following weeks. I'll try to make it the week after that, and I might issue a poll beforehand in just to make sure that enough people are interested and enough people will show up. And I'm just seeing something from Will. Let me see. Okay, so Will, what's your point that they must not be including TAs in COS again this time?
There have been semesters where they didn't include the TAs and didn't let us know. I usually get you said it was open, and I usually get the emails from it when it's about to open.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll go look at the course I'm taking.
I'm looking at it right now. It's not even showing me the upcoming survey. So
what you're saying is that you don't see the survey at all, or you don't see the TAs in the survey?
I do not see the survey at all.
Mine has TAs. So maybe they just forgot you.
Do you have it? Do you see ours? Nice.
Yeah, and I've been receiving this week the update about the number of people who submitted the survey. So I'm pretty sure that it's open, and students, I guess it would be good to know. So since we have students listening, if you can let us know whether you received something about the CIOS. If you didn't, we'll make sure that is fixed. But I'll be surprised, actually. I'm wondering whether with the fact that you are, well, did you graduate? No, you graduated, right? Well, so
yep. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be the reason why I didn't get anything?
Except that I would have thought I would have still gotten the stuff as a TA. I didn't get it for either class. I'm not. It's not even. I went to my Smarty Vals or whatever, and there's nothing listed there, except all the old ones.
Okay, so I guess for the students, let us know if you didn't receive anything about it, and we'll try to post a reminder on Piazza as well to make sure everybody knows. And I'd be surprised actually if they didn't send out anything, but you never know, or it could be a glitch. All right, so those were my announcements. So now I guess for the announcements from Erin and Will, which are probably the ones that you're mostly interested in because they're about grades. So I'm gonna let them tell you what the situation is.
Well, the TAs tell me that they are putting the last dots and dotted I's and crossed T's on assignment 6, which means in the next probably 48 hours we'll have them back to you. They are working on 7. They tell me that they will be done by the mid to late this week, which means we should have, knock on wood, should have 7 back to you about the same time as you guys are finishing up the individual project. So that's where we are with grading. Erin, what you got?
Pretty much that. I don't think there's anything else I'm missing, is there?
Don't know. Just thought I'd ask what you got because that's all I had.
No, I don't think I have anything different this time.
Okay, then in this case, I guess we can go to the questions. So let me get there. Okay, so probably questions about the individual project, I guess. Oh, and I think there was a comment that just came in saying that I received the survey this morning. Okay, so thanks for clarifying this. So I guess the survey did go out. So hopefully people are going to start responding. Otherwise, we'll remind you. And by the way, our dean will remind you multiple times. So I guess that's another way to avoid email harassment is to respond to the survey, and if everybody responds, the emails will stop. So that's another way another kind of encouragement or another reason why to do it. Okay, so let's get to the first question. For a valid set of inputs, we see a null pointer exception or index out of bound exception thrown from the code. Shouldn't it be a bug as the program is not able to iterate correctly, or there is a null check missing? Can you please confirm this? Unresolved in 1542. And let's open 1542. So in theory, that should not be happening. And I'm gonna let Erin know. Also, here you shouldn't be able to kind of trigger that by invoking the command line. So invoking the program from the command line and passing parameters. I'm trying to think of cases in which that might happen, but it really shouldn't be, because any problem with the parameters or with the files should be caught and a suitable error should be produced. So I'm gonna let Erin chime in, and I see that in the meanwhile she actually answered the question here on the thread that you mentioned. But if you want to add something, as I said, I'd be surprised, because that in theory shouldn't happen.
I think the main point I would add is you're saying for a valid set of inputs. I would carefully consider whether they're a valid set of inputs. Could you actually send those from the command line to the application? If you can't, then it really seems out of scope for the program to handle within the specs that were given. It's supposed to be used from the command line. If it can't happen in that scenario, it's really not important whether it gives exactly what sort of error it gives.
And actually, I think something else, we cannot do this for everybody, but I guess in my case, also out of curiosity for myself, you can also try to post this privately to us, just saying, hey, this is what I'm invoking, and it might be interesting to see what it is and see whether we can we can figure out why you're getting that error. Because again, as Erin said, I mean, a valid set of inputs, which means I'm assuming that you're not passing in any kind of null value. But yeah, that's something, you know, if you can kind of put a concise, or maybe the test case, or private to us, of course. We'll if you do it, we can also look at that right after the office hours and try to respond right away. That's because at this point I'm curious to see what's happening.
I would add to that though, like you don't need to post every single bug that you're not positive about the cause of, because if you get the cause wrong, that's fine, so long as you put a reasonable cause. You know, don't make everything fail and post 500 bugs that aren't bugs. But if you've got reasonable failures with reasonable guesses as to their causes, it's fine if they're not 100% what actually happened. So if you have two possible causes, you think something's a bug, that's okay. Like, we're not expecting you to guess the code entirely from this.
Okay, and yeah, and of course we know we can't guarantee. This is not an invitation to post all your test cases so that we can double check and let you know which type we think that is or which type that is. But you know, using your best judgment is really the best way to go. But this is, you know, if we can have a look and provide some feedback, we're more than happy to do it. Okay, for the additional test cases for coverage and finding bugs, do we need to follow any naming convention? No, probably not. As long as you use anything that works for you, you can continue with the numbering, or you can just call them with some meaningful name for you. These are the extra ones, so it shouldn't really matter. Other than the bugs type C, D, etc., do we need to refer to a test frame or provide explanation for the test being added for coverage? So you do not need, I mean, I can double check this, I don't think we mentioned anywhere that we need to refer to the test frame. For the new ones, you won't have a test frame. Sorry, go ahead, Mary.
This one's answered in 1536 as well. There's really no way to have them refer to a test frame and still expect them to get 100% coverage on requirements that have changed since they generated the test frames. Like, they would have absolutely no test referring to the new option. So there's no real way to expect that, and the assignment doesn't mention the test frames at this point.
And I think for the type D, you are supposed to provide an explanation, if I recall correctly. So type C, actually type C and
right.
Type D, I'm double checking. You're supposed to provide an explanation, right?
They like provide what you think is causing them, basically.
And then the question here, are we allowed to paste the test from the previous D2 main test.java 30 test cases provided by TA into our my main test to generate coverage, or we should definitely readapt them instead of just copying them over? I think we say in the assignment that you can copy them over, but clearly if this didn't, they should not increase, that they're not going to be able to find bugs, basically. But otherwise, again, I think we stated in the assignment, and I can double check, or Eric can confirm.
Yeah,
but I think there's nothing preventing you from
that they can use them, but they won't find any bugs. I would say cutting and pasting them may or may not compile if you seriously cut and paste it directly into the same file. So, like, you're going to have to run it and make sure it compiles all in one class.
Okay, next question is, will the original main.java and capitalized.java, where we are running, will individual project deliverables be evaluated in group, like the group project, or individually assessed on D1, D2, and D3? So you'll be like, I'm going to answer the second question first. You're going to get one grade for the whole project, which means that we'll individually grade the D1, D2, and D3, and then we'll give a different weight to the three, put them together, and give you a single grade for all three of them. But you'll get feedback on all three of them. And as for releasing main.java and capitalized.java, I guess we can do that. We're not going to be able to do it right after the project is due for, well, for various reasons, but I'll be happy to go into details later. But it's so there's cases that might make it difficult for us to release them, but we should be able to release them after the fact. What we're gonna do, sure, we're gonna discuss. We're more than happy to explain what you could have done to find what the bugs were and what you could have done to find them. So that we can definitely do. And okay, now the next one, I started my main test. I started my main test file, then added instructor's test for main test, and then decided to add some new tests. In order to keep all the tests straight, I reordered and renamed them, keeping the appropriate comments so it's clear what was an instructor's test. Is this okay? The main point here is that test case names no longer mesh to either the main test or my main test files. So as usual, I think that's actually, we can live with that. It might complicate the grading. So Erin, what do you think? Is that going to be an issue for the grading because it's going to be tough to map things, or?
We really don't care about them renaming the instructor test because those they probably would have had to rename to not conflict with their own test anyways. The problem is in identifying which tests were from your D2. Because if they're mixed all through and renamed, then we're going to have a hard time grading whether you've appropriately labeled the type C's and type D's and types A's and B's that you're supposed to. If, say, you don't need A's and B's up here, you have some type D's, and then the A's and B's should be scattered through the whole thing. So I don't know exactly what will happen with that. It's likely to cause a lot of errors and a lot of time going back and forth and correcting that. I don't think we've seen anybody really reorder them to the extent that that was a problem, so we didn't think to tell you not to. But that definitely is going to cause confusions and difficulties in grading if we can't tell which tests were in D2. Without
so I guess, you know, if you can avoid it, that's probably better. But otherwise, we know, as you said, we can live with that. We don't want you to spend tons of time kind of reverting back what you did. And but if you finish and you have time to do it, sure, you know, it might be nice to preserve the same structure. And otherwise, I guess we'll make it work. Yeah. Next question. No, sorry, go ahead, Erin.
If you are wanting to reorder them and you haven't yet, if you could at least, you know, preserve the original name or anything so that we can tell what it is, that would be better. We need to be able to find all of the D2 tests.
Okay, so next question is what is the takeaway from D3? Is it black box testing is not enough? Is there a recommended strategy here beyond brute force? Great question, actually, I really like it. And I can tell you what, you know, that the original reason why we started D3, doing this in D3 a few semesters ago. And actually, you pretty much get it right in the sense that it's both. And I don't know, by the way, if you're also getting feedback. I'm hearing myself from somewhere it wasn't like that before, so I'm getting some echo. The students are not getting the same. But anyways, so what is the takeaway from D3? It's that one is that figuring out what you can do with black box testing and what you cannot, and so that's definitely kind of seeing the limit of black box testing and how it can be tough to get all the corner cases just by looking at the domain. And the other the other one is that you know, if you, how to put it, if you really can sample your domain in the right way, you can still get it. So I guess, you know, that it's a double message really. One is black box testing is great to train in the right way, and so as to spot all the corner cases. Or more, you know, it also might be too expensive. And the second thing is definitely, you know, trying to get a clear sense of the how complementary black box testing and white box testing are. So you're not doing white box testing here because you don't have the code, but if you have the code, it'll be really easy to figure out what you didn't cover and just add one test case for that. So it's really, you know, the double message and making it very clear that these two strategies are complementary, basically. And as for what is a recommended strategy here beyond brute force, I guess thinking hard about the domain and trying to find, again, corner cases and boundary cases that you might not have considered. Another way to do it actually is to do random testing. So basically encode the various parameters, let's say, of the problem. So in this case, the various kinds of inputs in a way so that you can sample randomly and just throw you know, a generator at the code and try to see whether you see some unexpected failures. It might be complicated because you'll have to check the results, but that's another way to do it. But otherwise, really, what I will recommend is trying to think about all the possible cases. You already thought about the domain hard, supposedly, when you did the category partition test. So trying to see whether you can, by relaxing maybe some of the constraints, you can come up with cases that you might have overlooked and that can identify the problem. So it's not brute force in the sense of, you know, really doing exhaustive testing, but it is definitely increasing the number of test cases and try things that you haven't tried before. So that's really the best strategy. So the best strategy will really be to do white box testing, but unfortunately you cannot do that. And just a note here, which is, so it's true that we requested you to find the bugs and also to get 100% coverage, but you know, you'll still get points even if you don't get to that. So this is not a sort of a sadistic game of you, you know, trying to find impossible to find bugs or impossible to reach coverage. It is really doable, and even if you don't get to that, you will still get points.
Yeah, since we made the code that you're testing, we know exactly what it requires to get to that 100%. There's nothing that shouldn't be like undoable or require anything that you wouldn't know or shouldn't be doing at this point. I also put an answer to something similar to this in 1562. And I think I wouldn't think too much about it being 100% and that being black box versus white box, but more like that's a benchmark and we know what it takes to reach that benchmark, and that's saying that you considered at least these important cases in your black box testing. That it's 100% mostly means that you hit the cases we considered. It's not really the same as when it's white box testing. Does that make sense?
I guess, yeah. Or, you know, if it doesn't make sense, you know, feel free to follow up and we'll try to further clarify.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get to the next one. And okay, is there any requirement on this? How we explain the possible bug in the code? What if we find the bug but the reason is wrong? Yeah, don't worry about it too much. So if you find the bug and the explanation is wrong, actually I think we also mentioned that something along those lines in the assignment, but that's fine. Number of test cases in total, for example, if the test cases are around 70, will it be too much? No, there's really no limitation. So we hope you don't have to write 300 test cases to get to the coverage, because that will be a lot of work. but there's no constraint on the number of test cases. I have to say, actually, let me add something, because I know that this can be frustrating when you're trying to get the coverage and get the bugs. In previous semesters, when we had kind of different projects or different topic for the application, and of course a different implementation, people sort of, I guess many of the students really enjoy the game, quote unquote, and when they found the bug, they found like they solved a hard puzzle, which is always rewarding. But I understand that the path there might be frustrating. So see it as a sort of as a puzzle to solve, and do the best that you can. And as I said, if you don't find it, it's you can still get a good grade. It's just not going to be kind of full points.
We do get a lot of posts that are like, I'll never find it. They're like, I've tried forever and it'll never get there. And then before we can even answer them, they're like, oh, it was that now. Like, we're fine now. It's usually just 1 or 2 cases away from done, and you just never know which those are.
Okay, the next question. Search when to use one only. I don't quite understand the following. Assert equals file different expected actually. Assert equal usage. Capitalize blah blah blah, the whole usage message error stream trim. And then there's a follow-up by John that says, hi Mary, in the case provided you'd want to use an assert statement to ensure 1, usage is called, and 2, the file remains unchanged. For example, the program doesn't continue manipulate the file content if usage is called. I hope this helps. Oh yes, it does. Thanks, John. Now, thanks also from us, John, because that's the right answer. So I'm just going to mark this as resolved. And unfortunately, we don't have a like for the follow-ups, but that's we endorse that answer. As follows, but didn't recognize expected, and I couldn't find anywhere it was defined in assignment 3. Also, what should be the assert statement? Thanks. Test expected equal no pointer exception to class. I'm sorry, that might be an easy topic, but it confuses me. What's the best way of testing exception handling? What is an example of not handling exceptions correctly? So let's see. So basically what you want to do is to see whether, so the test, if you're expecting a null pointer exception, that will mean that you're expecting the program actually to fail with that. So the test case should actually fail. So I don't know, I guess, maybe, Aaron jump in if I'm misunderstanding, but I'm not sure whether this is a general question about testing in Java, or if it's a question about the individual project.
I guess a couple answers. Like, if it's not recognizing expected, and there's some weird spacing and stuff going on in the quote there, but assuming there's no typos, if it's not recognizing that, then it's probably doesn't have the import statements correct. And you could look back at one of the previous assignments and get the import statements from there. Or your JUnit isn't included, but I think you'd have a lot more problems if that were the case.
And as Erin said, the problem might be actually the extra space in case this is a copy and paste exactly. So there shouldn't be any space between null pointer exception and dot class. But I was kind of attributing that to the copy and paste. But that's
yeah, the if it is for this assignment, I would really consider when you're thinking a test case should result in a null pointer exception, because that's what you're saying with the expected, is that this input should have a null pointer exception, because there isn't any exception handling defined in the specs. So that's a little bit questionable there. And as far as assert statements, when you have an exception, That's kind of depends on if there's anything else you expect to happen, such as that case you asked about in the question before this. If this were a program that used an exception instead of the usage statement, you might be looking that the file didn't change, but you can't do that after the exception is thrown. So usually you're just looking for the exception. There's a couple ways you can approach that if you need to check for something else. But the expected is almost like the oracle itself. If it doesn't get that exception, then the test will fail.
So I guess to summarize, that's the right way to test for exception in case you're expecting the correct behavior to throw an exception. And an example of not handling exceptions correctly is a case in which you expect the exception to be handled, for example, and it is not. So, but in that case, the test case will fail. So when you put expected, as Erin said, it means that you're expecting the correct behavior to be thrown in an exception. So we hope that this answered and didn't confuse you more. Otherwise, as usual, feel free to follow up. Okay, next question. When we find a bug, do we need to do anything aside from writing the comments about the test case? And as a follow-up to further this question, should we leave the test to find bugs in a failure state? There is, if we find a bug in a specific test, should the test fail because of the bug, or should we simply leave the comment above as Zane asked? So this depends also on what the problem is. So if the problem is that your test case fails because you made a different assumption than we did, so you should fix that. But if it's a test case that makes our program fail, and you find a problem, then at that point you should leave the test failing because it's actually revealing a problem in the code. And let me see if that answers everything. Yeah, so hopefully that answers the question. So again, it depends on whether it's something that reveals a bug in our code or in your code, in a sense. Are there a certain amount of known bugs that were purposely left in the capitalization program? For example, the output won't be correct if the specific combination of arguments, or are we supposed to find unknown bugs that are known to both the creator of this program and the TAs? No, there are known bugs. There might be also unknown bugs, in which case, even more kudos to you if you find them, but to make sure that, again, you're not just trying to find something that's not there. We didn't put there something where you need to have like 35 in line 3 of the file for that to fail. So it's not something like that. It's well, too much, but
occasionally you do find
sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Occasionally people do find extra bugs. It's really, really hard to break a program only in very specific ways and not cause that to also make something else break elsewhere. So
yes. So and again, so basically there are bugs that are quote unquote should be relatively easy to find, or not straightforward, but it's definitely feasible to find them. And as Erin said, it's hard enough to write a program bug-free even for a relatively simple one. So you might just as well find bugs that we didn't really realize they were there, which is even better. Can we get a solid idea of the penalty for not getting 100% of line coverage, especially as it relates to main class? I don't think I'm the only one who has been stuck on 98% for a reasonable amount of time. I prefer just eat 1% of whatever reasonable penalty would be. A hint beyond try all the parameters I have would also be appreciated, since we are doing line coverage with black box testing. Thanks. So let's see. I'll have to look at the rubric, and I think we changed that semester by semester. So Erin, do you remember how much was the penalty last time for the not getting 100% coverage? I can look it up.
Well, it's
a formula.
Yeah, it's a formula. It's split across the missing coverage, but it's not like just 1% for 1%.
Well, let's see. What's the worst case scenario? Even if it's a formula. Because the other thing is like to keep in mind is that if it also depends on how many people find it. So if a lot of people are stuck at 98%, we might be a little more lenient on that. So it's not we don't know 100% with 100% certainty in advance. It's not tons of points that we can tell you.
The worst case scenario, I think last time it was about 20, but the balances never end up exactly the same because they won't have quite the same numbers of various things, and we haven't rebalanced those numbers for this time.
Right, and I think 20 is really worst case, and also you have to take into account that this is a point on one of the 3 deliverables. So in the end, you won't end up losing too much.
Right. The third deliverable, like the later deliverables tend to be weighted more. So the third one is probably going to be more than a third of the total grade. And the coverage is maybe like half of what they're doing in that deliverable. So I'd expect it to land somewhere close to that 20% range, but for the whole coverage. It's just, I wouldn't expect every single percent to be 1/20th of that.
And we can try to be more precise if you post I'm just gonna leave this unresolved. We're gonna try to be a little more precise on this because I understand where you're coming from, and I can imagine the frustration if you're stuck at that coverage and you think you tried everything. So the good news is that you have basically 1 week to try more, but I understand that you might want to spend all of your free cycles hitting at the code to try to get that. So I'm going to leave this unresolved, and I'm going to try to give you more details after the office hours. The next question is one that is actually resolved, so I don't know if it's because it got resolved. Let me read it. When I add a test that generates an exception, the report is not generated. I guess this is normal behavior. Can you confirm? So the report should be rated anyways, but coverage tools can be a little tricky. So Erin, do you know what might happen if there's an exception that there should still be coverage measured and generated?
Yeah, okay. The report is not generated. I don't think that should be the case. No, that's definitely not the case. Because I know in the past I've generated ones that did have exceptions because we have had some of those in previous terms. And that generated the report just fine. The report shouldn't be generated if it doesn't compile or it doesn't complete the test. So if you've got something that's got like an infinite loop or something like that, I'd go ahead and run the test against your own implementation in the IDE and see if it does anything screwy that stops it from completing. I mean, it won't tell you about the coverage or bugs, but it will show you that the tests themselves work. As far as the coverage itself, a failing test will still count as coverage with this particular tool. But and it will with the exception as well. So there's probably something else going on with his.
Okay, so I guess you can try again and try to see, and if anybody else has similar problems, let us know and we look further into that. Then let's see, next question. Any status on the collaboration participation quiz grade? Adding to this updated grade from group project regrade. Okay, so for the first one, the participation quiz grades, those we produce at the end. So you only see them in the end of the semester because that's when we compute participation and we look at the quiz completion. And for the collaboration, actually, I guess, Will, when are we going to do the collaboration one? Because that's mostly on Will and me and myself.
Not participation, collaboration.
Collaboration, yeah.
Yeah, we need to do that. I forgot that we don't still have the TA that used to do that. All right, I guess I will work on that this weekend.
So I guess we're going to try to have them to you sometime next week. So because normally what happens is that we compute the grades mathematically, then we look at the comments and we look for outliers. So if there's quite a bit of manual work that goes into that to make sure that we are fair and as balanced as possible. So let's shoot for doing it for some time next week, and feel free to ping us again if you guys don't see those grades. As for the updated grade for group project regrade, I'm gonna let Erin and Will answer that because they're the ones managing the grade challenges.
I think there's still some group challenges out. Some of them were a bit slow to come in and get started, and then we went into the holidays. So that did not help those. I know I've seen some recent ones where the groups have posted following up, so I know they're not done. Not sure how many are left. So the various TAs are working on that. Because those go to specific TAs, they're not like a one-day response thing, especially if some of the TAs were out. And the grades don't get updated until they're all done. So we're working on those.
Okay, the next question is, do we get answers? I'm not referring to grades for the assignment 7. You did get the answers. We actually, if you're talking about the solution, we actually did a complete solution the week after the assignment was done on the office hours. So you can go there and look at those office hours, and you'll have all of your answers. So we went through a solution, we discussed it, and so you should see, should find everything you want to know about it there. And if you don't, or if I misunderstood the questions, please follow up. I heard your message loud and clear about trying to preserve the D2 test cases so that it is easier to grade, and we'll go back and put the original names. Do you care if we rename the methods that create the input files? Nope. You can rename those any way you want. So it doesn't bother us. And thanks for going back and changing the test cases.
Yeah, that will really help so we don't spend like hours trying to match them to each other.
Will any of the remaining office hours this semester be live? You had mentioned early in the semester that there may be an office hour that could be attended by students in the Atlanta area or students visiting Atlanta. So yeah, I mentioned this at the beginning of this office hour. So you I want to do that. And the only issue is that next week I'll be traveling because we have an actually related meeting. I have to say, in case you're curious, there's the International Conference on Software Engineering, which is one of the 2 main conferences in the area. And so there's going to be a meeting to define the program of the conference. And so I'm going to be there from Tuesday to Friday. So it's going to be tough to do it that week, because normally I will try to do it. Monday is probably going to be, actually no, Monday is going to be not going to work just because I'm leaving on Monday night. And Friday I might try to do it. And the following week I'm actually gone all week for a winter school, and so that's not going to happen. I hope next Friday if that can work out, or I'm going to try to do it the week after the semester is over. So I guess it's not the same thing, and but if people are interested, I'm more than happy to hold the office hours. It's actually perfect for the reason for given the goal of the meeting. The goal of the live office hours is really to discuss the class and meet people and get live feedback. So if it works for you guys, I'm more than happy to do it even if the semester is over. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna probably post as soon as I figure out what's going to be my schedule next week. I can post something on Piazza, sort of a mini survey, and ask people whether they will be interested in attending, and if so, when will work best for them. And if we do it, you know, at a later time, like 6 o'clock or so, I may even order pizza, yoo-hoo, which is something that I've done in previous cases. So that makes it, I guess, a little more enjoyable, and also gives an additional motivation for people to participate. Of course, participate in person, because if they participate live or remotely, they're not going to enjoy the pizza. So anyways, long story short, yes, I'm going to try to have this office hours. It's just unfortunate that the traveling doesn't work well for the last 2 weeks of the semester in this case, but I'm gonna try to hold them, if not before the end of the semester, right after the end of the semester. And thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so I don't see any additional questions. Let me see if something pops up. Okay, I don't see anything new, so I guess we're gonna say our goodbyes. So these are the last let's say official office hours, or kind of clarification office hours. So thank you all for participating in this and previous office hours. That they're really the part of this class that makes it feel, for me at least, more like a regular class in which you can have some interaction with the students, direct interaction with the students. So it's great that people participate, and I'm going to try to have those extra ones. So hopefully I'm going to see some of you in person, whether through a screen or really physically in person, and we're going to have the final one of the semester then. Until then, we'll see you guys on Piazza. We'll do our best to try to grade whatever is remaining as quickly as possible, and of course you can always post your questions and give you answer on Piazza. And by the way, something else I want to mention: we have a few posts on Piazza there that fell slightly behind, so we're going to try to make a sweeping pass and try to answer everybody. And if you have something that's been pending for some time and you want an answer, please post a follow-up, and not because we won't see them otherwise, but because we know that is still relevant, and we'll get to that before getting to some that might be not relevant anymore. All right, with that, goodbye everybody.
Wait,
I'm gonna
before you sign off, we didn't tell them how the final grade challenges work.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Prioritization, yeah.
Oh, okay. So let me quickly mention that then. So don't that we're gonna have to submit grades at some point, which is December 18th, if I recall correctly. So even if you have pending challenges, so there's two things really. One is that if you have pending challenges by the time we have to submit the grades, don't worry, because we can amend grades. So if you have something that might change your grade and is being discussed, and so imagine that you have something that brings you to a B, but you have a great challenge, and we give you back the points, and that becomes an A. That's we fix that. So we have actually the whole semester to fix a grade. So don't worry about having pending challenges by the time we have to submit the grades, because the grades are not final. Second thing is that for the grade challenges, we're going to prioritize all the grade challenges that might make a difference. So if you already have an A and you have a grade challenge, we're going to answer those after all the ones that might make a difference between, for example, a C and a B or a B and an A, as you can imagine, because that's your great challenge. We understand that it's important, and it's in many cases a matter of principle, but it's not going to change your grade. So even if you get an answer, let's say a week later, it's really just informative for you, but it's not going to make any difference. Whereas for people that are between two grades, you answer all these channels, answer the other ones. So I think that's. But thanks, Erin, for reminding me. With the fact that we're having this sort of last office hours so far away from the grading, we didn't think about that, but that's something that we should really mention. And once more, don't worry about pending challenges, because we can get to those even after the semester is over. All right. With that, I mean, unless I forgot something else. So basically, Erin is our external memory for both Will and I. Were becoming more and more senile by the day. Sorry, Will, if I'm involving you in this.
No, but, it's true.
and so luckily we have Erin, who's still young and fresh. So all right, then bye everybody. I'm gonna let Erin and Will see you on Piazza, and hopefully we'll see you, at least some of you, in person in the kind of final office hours, or post-mortem. Let's call them post-mortem office hours. Bye everybody.
Post-mortem. So essentially after we all die.
Really cheery way of looking at it.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
But still hope to see you there.
Enjoy the rest of the semester with that Paul cast over it.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.